are the Storyhouse Young Company, and today's panel is focused on the impact of lockdown on mental health. And we have three speakers from our young company. We've got Harry, Hannah and Jada, and then we are also joined by Jasmin Parsons, who is a primary school teacher who's going to be offering us a perspective on what lockdown has been like for her students. And the first question is, what do you think about the impact of lockdown on young people?
I think everyone's experience as a child, as a young person, is going to be very different. For the young people that I work with in primary school, I think their experience is going to be really different to teenagers. For them, I think at first it was really nice to have a break from school and all the work that we do, and not get much homework. We didn't give them loads to start off with. But then I think it probably would have got quite challenging to occupy their time. And I think for parents as well, having them with them at home was probably quite challenging doing homeschooling. So I think it really does just depend. Some children as well were probably really great in lockdown. They probably really enjoyed being at home and you know, reading books. They might have had more of an introverted personality, whereas I think some young people that really bounce off others probably miss those connections that they had with other people. Other family members and other friends in school. So yeah, it's really subjective. Positives and negatives, but I think coming towards the end of lockdown, for a lot of the children in my school, it was probably becoming quite challenging, and just trying to overcome those challenges, trying to occupy your time and maintain the schoolwork that we give them. It's difficult doing that in an environment where they're not used to doing lots of work.
So I think in terms of lockdown, the impact of young people, it's been a very, very weird and surprising ride. Like I always thought it was going to be a bit negative, and I've had my negative days, I've had my negative experiences and everything, but I'm seeing a lot of positivity at the moment. The majority of us, we understand now that this is serious, and we're using social media in ways that isn't just filling time and, you know, just, you know, nothing in particular. We're using it to communicate with people when we can't do it. So I think we've reached this really interesting like path that there's a lot of positivity now. You know, I scroll through Facebook or Instagram or whatever, and I see a lot of people posting, you know, little victories and things like that. And I think it means a lot to do that. You have to try and, you know, experience positivity in wherever you go, and in whatever you do, because otherwise you just basically feel like you're imprisoned. You know, I was listening to a song the other day, and there's a lyric saying, is it these four walls that are dragging you down? And I was just like, that he wrote that album came out like 2 years ago, but those words like mean so much in lockdown. And when I heard that, I was like, I refuse to let my bedroom walls drag me down. So I managed to bring myself up, and I think more and more people are doing that now. So what started off as negative has become positive, which I think is fantastic, personally.
I think the impact for me has been mostly like been a big shift in like my focuses, because before quarantine I was working towards my A-levels, and for 2 years that's been kind of like my goal, my endpoint, just get to my A-levels, let's get to my exams, and that's all I've been working for, getting up for. That's been like at the center of my daily routine. And so being in quarantine and not having any more work to do, not having those exams at the start was a real kind of shock to the system. Just the change in workload, and also the change in not having anything I have to do. So then I had to look for things that I wanted to do and kind of think, what did I used to do with all my free time when I wasn't doing homework? So yeah, that has been a big impact for me. And also my relationships with people have changed a lot. Like my conversations aren't kind of based around daily activities and things and schoolwork now. I feel like I've gotten to know my friends and my family a lot better, and talk about more important things than kind of just, you know, how to get from A to B during the day.
The initial impact on young people was probably quite negative, in the way that obviously lots of high school students didn't get to finish high school properly. It was just like that was it, and then obviously exams have been messed around, and then university students as well. Like, I'm meant to be starting university in September, but it won't be the same university experience that everybody else has had. And I know some of my friends have been in like their last year at university and they've not been able to say goodbye to their housemates properly. They just had to move out immediately. So I think that initially it was just a huge shock that no one got to celebrate or, you know, take advantage of these huge moments in your life, because you had to go home and be isolated from everybody, from friends and family. But I think that now, like Harry said, people are using social media to bring you closer together. And I find that I'm speaking to people that I normally never spoke to beforehand, and reaching out to people that I wouldn't have spoke to if this wasn't all going on. So I think that people are focusing their energies on what they really love and focusing it on themselves. So I think that if anything, it shows like the resilience of young people, that we've managed to make positives out of something that has affected us as a generation so insanely. But I think that there are positives and negatives, and I think that everybody has been able to find a little positive in this, which is really hopeful.
Do you think social distancing will impact young people?
I think social distancing is really hard for everyone, not just young people. I think in school it's challenging because you kind of go back into school and you're so used to it being a certain way, even if you're in high school, and all of a sudden you've got signs everywhere that are reminding you to stay 2 meters, and you know, you've got to stay in certain areas, or you know, you can't have too many people in one place. So I think it's going to be really hard, but I think we all adapt really quickly, and we've kind of adapted really quickly to going to the shops and being out in the park and just general things like that, that, you know, once more people start going out into public, start, you know, going back to school or going back to work, I think everyone will just adapt really nicely, and they'll get used to, you know, having their social distancing and adhering to that. So it'll probably be tricky at first, but then after a while we'll just get used to it.
With young people, it's a bit of a difficult question, to be honest, I think, because I know a lot of people who both have and haven't social distance. There's sort of like there's no in between. So I want to believe that young people will be like, right, you know, after lockdowns ended, we'll stay social distance for a while, you know, just in case. But I'm not really holding my breath, to be honest with you. We'll come to realize that, you know, maybe normality isn't going to be as easy to achieve as we might think. You know, I want to believe that we'll stay social distance. I personally will. I don't think, you know, once it goes away, there's a risk of it coming back. You know, I don't want to risk it coming back. So I'll try and keep as socially distant as I can. But I can't speak for a lot of young people, but I know people that will, and I know people that won't. And we'll just have to see what happens, I think.
Social distancing. I think that social distancing has made people a little bit more, again, going back to the point about having your relationships change. Usually I just kind of hung out with my friends, but we'd all sit or we'd all be on our phones and we'd not be talking to each other. And so not being allowed to see each other has made us appreciate each other more, I think. And it's made us more aware of each other's emotions, because when during the quarantine, a couple of friends, if they've had a hard day or if they've got a little bit upset, not being able to be in the room with them has forced us to kind of communicate in a different way to make them feel better or to, you know, comfort them a little bit. So I think that social distancing has maybe helped us to understand each other a little more. But I think that the lack of contact has also contributed to some people's like more negative outlook of quarantine. I think I have a lot of friends who are very people oriented, and they kind of buzz off other people, so not being able to see their friends has put them in a really kind of bad place. So there's good points and there's bad points, but yeah, I think it's definitely changed things a lot.
The effects of social distancing, it entirely depends on the person that you are. Like the others said, like, I'm a homebody anyway, so I was fine being isolated, and I don't really like crowded areas anyway, so social distancing is not really a problem for me. I found it quite easy to just get into that habit, but then I think that the effects of that afterwards will be that I've been into Chester quite a few times, and I found I've had to go home because I've had like a panic attack because people weren't social distancing. And there was like, I was in a coffee shop and then I went outside and there was like a whole gang of people and nobody moved out my way and I nearly cried. So I think that it depends on the type of people that you are. That's lots of people now as well aren't social distancing as strictly anymore. And obviously parks and all these areas, everybody's meeting up in huge groups. But I think that there are lots of young people who are taking it really seriously. I know my friends, we've all taken it super seriously. We've been on picnics. I've not hugged my friends yet since lockdown started. So even though I know that lots of people are doing that now, but then I think that there's lots of people who have found social distancing hard because they like being around people and they like hugging people. And if you're going through a tough time, all you want to do is meet up and talk to someone and, you know, sit in your friend's room and chat, but you can't. And I think that for some people, it probably will be super easy to get back into normality again. And for other people like me, I know I'll find it really hard if people aren't social distancing, because now I'm so used to it. The idea of that not being a thing anymore will be terrifying. But I think that people will always find a way to make it work for them. And I think that social distancing will probably be in place for a while. And I think that it will work for people and it will work out. And I think it's phasing out. And I think that everyone has a different experience of it. And I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing, but obviously it is a bad thing if people aren't social distancing. But I think, yeah, there's always positives and negatives to everything. And I think it just depends on the person that you are.
How have you been during lockdown?
I think it kind of like relates a little bit to what Hannah was just saying. She said that she's kind of like a home bird, so she finds it okay being at home, and I'm the same. I've really enjoyed having time to myself, which has been really nice, and I've had a really nice time catching up on things that I probably wouldn't have had the opportunity to do if I was still working, going into work every day. Like, I still have to do work at home anyway and planning for my class, but it definitely creates more opportunities for you to just explore new hobbies or just kind of do things that you probably wouldn't have had time to do before. I've watched a lot of Netflix, which has been really great because I love Netflix. I've started cooking more, which has been nice. So there's been really positive things out of it, skills that I've been able to develop, because before I couldn't cook. Like, you wouldn't try my food. But now I'm quite proud of what I can make. So that's really good. But then it has also been really hard to not, been able to like go out with my friends and meet up with family members, especially at the start of lockdown. And you're right, like, some people just need a hug sometimes, and not being able to do that has been really challenging. But I think overall, I've dealt with it quite well, but obviously my experience is probably really different to other people's experiences. Like Hannah said, it really depends on the kind of person that you are. But I've managed well within lockdown, and I think it's been good having social media. We've heard that mentioned before, that it's been really useful to connect with people and kind of, you know, eliminate that loneliness that some people have felt. I think without social media and being able to talk with friends on Skype and Zoom, it would have been a lot more challenging than it was.
I feel for me, how have I been during lockdown is a question that can change from like week to week. Like if you asked me at like the beginning of June, I would have been like, oh, it sucks, and it's, you know, really depressing answer. But for me, I've been really happy lately, and it's because like lockdown has given me the chance to explore myself. So, you know, it's sort of like a hard look in the mirror type thing. So if it didn't happen, you know, I would have been going around my, you know, other things in my life, and you got to do something with all this spare time you got to do, haven't you? So I've taken this opportunity in lockdown is to work on myself, basically, and I'm feeling okay, to be honest with you. I'm reading a lot. I'm learning how to just be calmer with myself, and I'm okay in myself. I've been, you know, trying to do a bit of meditation. I've been reading a book about, you know, learning how to be zen and to be calm and just take everything as it comes. I'm only halfway through that book and I've already learned so much. I think it's brilliant. I went for a walk today by myself, and I just had time to just think a lot of problems that would have bothered me don't bother me anymore. And it's such a relief, because I don't think I would have had this moment if lockdown hadn't happened. You know, I don't think I would have been able to realize that I'm sick and tired of living like this now. You know, I'm sick and tired of living in my head. I'm tired of not having anything to do and not having a purpose. So it sort of forced me to get up and do things, which I think is great. And I feel like my mental health is very positive at the moment. You know, knock on wood that it carries on. But yeah, I think there's a lot of positive with lockdown. I'm gonna be really gutted when life goes back to normal, and, you know, the hustle and bustle of everyday life carries on. I'm gonna do my best to, you know, keep this mindset that I've got at the moment and apply that to normal life. I'm looking forward to it. I think it'd be great.
How have I been during lockdown? I think it's been a bit of a roller coaster, like emotions wise. Before lockdown, I always used to kind of think, oh, I just wish we could just pause time for a little bit, but not, you know, not have it keep moving and not have all the implications of not doing anything, but time keep moving. And lockdown's kind of given me half of that. So at the start, it was really good. I kind of just caught up on all my sleep, relaxed, and like had a bit of a chill, a bit of a detox, I think. And then going from doing nothing and being okay about it, I went into doing nothing and being bored, but not having enough drive to actually get up and change that. Then the boredom got too much, and I started to do lots of different things. I decided to learn a couple languages, writing some scripts. I'm trying to like prepare for coming out of lockdown to kind of give me a new focus. So thinking about uni and things, I think that lockdown has given me more time with my family, because I'm planning to go to uni in September, and all school, everything, work, it just takes away all of that, like that valuable interaction time. Like I'm with my family at home and stuff, but we're all doing stuff, we're all separate. And so I think lockdown has given me more quality time with them, like a break, just a chance to enjoy smaller things that don't mean anything, but actually like mean a lot and make you feel good. Yeah, I think I started off in a good place, then it got bad, now it's got better. I didn't really have much of a reaction once when I found out they were closing schools and we wouldn't get exams and stuff, I think I was kind of just stunned and was like, okay, this is how it's going to be. So maybe last week it did kind of hit me, and I got really upset, and I was like, all the stuff I've worked towards and I don't get a chance to do it. But I think that thinking about all the things I have been doing that I probably never would have had a chance to do, not even in the future, because, you know, everything moves on, means that it's a good thing. Even though it's come out of a bad thing, it's come out of a virus, it's a positive, and it's an experience that not a lot of people will get.
I'm sort of the same as Jada. Like, I'm a naturally optimistic person, so I just tried to focus on all the things that I could do with the time that lockdown gave me. So focusing on things that you would view as like a treat in everyday life, like if you got the time to do it. But now it's just like that TV show that you wanted to watch a year ago but never had the time to, now you can sit there all day and watch that if you want to. And like, I've been writing a book that I had the idea for like 2 years ago, and I always made the excuse that, oh, you don't have the time to write that, like it's a silly idea, but now you have the time to do whatever you want with it. So I think that for some people it must be hard to find things to do, but I know that I like being at home anyway, but the hardest thing for me has been not seeing friends, but that's about it. But I find that I've kept in contact with more people and found more interests and found more out about myself during lockdown than I think I have at any time. And I like looking at the positives, and I think that there have been more positives for me in lockdown than anything else. But now it's just preparing what to do afterwards, which I think is the scariest thing. But I think, yeah, other than that, lockdown has been positive for me.
What will after lockdown be like for you?
I think that's quite a hard question to answer, because none of us really know what life after lockdown's going to look like. How much social distancing we still need to do, how many restrictions there are still going to be, what it's going to be like to go in shopping or to restaurants and things like that. So I think it's quite hard now to think about what that looks like and how that will be for me. I think if it was that everything just kind of went back to normal, to like, you know, how society was just before we went into lockdown, before, you know, the coronavirus happened, I think at first it'd be quite challenging, because you'd have to get back into that routine of everyday life, and kind of relearn how that feels to be in everyday life again.
Lockdown for me, a lot of things have gone wrong, you know, with lockdown. You know, things that I've had to stop doing and things that I've had to wait and do. Like, before lockdown, I was going to pass my driving test. I need to do that. You know, I was getting on with music. I was, you know, developing things with theatre and things like that. So having to stop that has been my main frustration with lockdown. So I am really determined. This is the most determined I've been in years, to just make everything happen. Because lockdown has just been, this is what happens if you've got no motivation. For me, you know, I could easily spend all day in front of the television, but I don't want to anymore. You know, 14-year-old Harry would be like, what? But me, I don't want to do that anymore. I want to get out there and start making something of myself, and I'm looking forward to it so much. But at the same time, you have to sort of be like, whoa, okay, you know, it's probably won't be as smooth as that. You know, things will come to light, things will get in the way, but that's okay, you know, because that's all part of the journey of life, really. And I'm just looking forward to start living it, you know. No matter what happens, it will be awesome, and I believe that. You know, I really want to believe it. So I'm really looking forward to it. I hope that it's positive. I hope we don't have another spike, but all we can do is do our best and make sure we take the precautions. And I think that after lockdown will be great. My mum keeps saying something she heard on a podcast that I think it was the guy who does The Last Leg, Adam Hill. That's it. He said that in 1920, after the virus that struck them, they had the Roaring Twenties, which was a great decade. And I think that we could have another Roaring Twenties, the Roaring 2020s or something, where at the end of this sort of disaster, we can make so much of this next decade. And I'm looking forward to it. I hope we do. I'll do my part to make the next decade brilliant. I'm really excited, to be honest. I think it'd be great.
After lockdown, for me, everything's going to be different. New school, new city, new friends, new way of living. I'm an adult now. So I think there's going to be so much that's changed, but I'm hoping that that's not something that worries me, because I know a lot of people will have like similar mindset to me, that before lockdown, change is something that upsets people and is something that they're worried about. But we've had a massive change and it's come out of nowhere and we've not been prepared for it. So I think now anything that comes our way, hopefully we'll be able to deal with it well and effectively. And I think that after lockdown is going to be a time where I'm less worried about doing things. Like if I want to do something or if there's something I want to achieve, I think that I'm going to be less likely to go, I don't have time for that, or there's no way this is going to happen, because why not? I think that a lot of our daily routines kind of get in the way, and we've realized in lockdown that we don't need to do half the things we were doing, because we're still functioning and we're still moving forward without being outside all the time, without doing all these things that we thought, make or break the day. I think that we're more adaptable than we believe. And I'm hoping that post-lockdown is going to bring all of that and turn it into a really good thing, a really positive thing. Especially in terms of things like our economy, like it's going to be a little bit, not a little bit, a lot affected by Corona, but I think that we're going to be able to handle that well. Yeah, I hope. Anyway.
The focus for after lockdown should be taking everything that we've learned about ourselves and about the world and about family and friends and carrying that with us, and not feeling guilty for doing self-care things that we do every day now because we can, and not feeling guilty for doing that when everything goes back to normal, that you can still enjoy things. You don't have to be focused on serious things all the time. And I think that people have learned so much about themselves during this and other people and what really matters to them, that I think people never realize what they would miss the most. And now that they'll be able to do it again, I think that everything means more. Going to your friend's birthday party will mean more than it did, or just going for coffee with someone you've not seen before, or even like walking around the supermarket with all your family, like, will be more special now because of that. So I think that after lockdown should just be more about focusing on what really is important and carrying all the happy things, but obviously as well, it's all about caution. But I think that everyone's learned so much now that I'd like to believe that nobody wouldn't take caution. I think that people have learned too much now to throw that all away. So I think that after lockdown is going to be really good.
What fears do you have beyond lockdown?
So one of my biggest fears in lockdown, I think, is that people are going to lose the positive qualities that they've taken on. So so many people have been volunteering to help the elderly, which has been amazing. And older generations have really seen the benefit of people offering them support for groceries and just talking to them. There's been the volunteer service where you can phone people, which has been amazing, and I think a lot of elderly people have, that's been so valuable for them in this time, and I think that's something that can continue to be really valuable for them. So, volunteering, lots of people have been doing that much more so than they were before, and a fear, it's not a massive fear, but it is a fear that people will probably go back to everyday life and maybe not do that as much or not do that at all. Social media has been amazing for people to share their views for different issues that have been coming to light, and I think people have had more time to engage with these kinds of discussions online. And after lockdown, there's always a bit of a fear that people won't be able to engage with that as much as they were before. And I think even just supporting people's mental health, I think a lot of people are going to struggle going back into everyday life, especially if they've been really comfortable being more introverted and spending time on their own. And I think going back into the everyday is going to be quite challenging for some people. So having good scaffolding in place to support them is going to be really necessary. So there's a fear maybe that that won't be as readily available to them as it could be.
Expanding on what Jasmin said, I'm nervous about all this positivity that's taken months and months to get during lockdown. I am nervous that it will go. I will do my best for it to not happen. But obviously going back, like, modern life is very busy. We go 100 miles an hour. If not, we're on our phones. If not, we're doing work. We've always got something to do. So it is a nervous thought that, all this positivity will go. So there is a fear, obviously, that stuff will go back to normal, because life before lockdown wasn't that great. And I would like to keep hold of every positive that I have. And just a second spike, I don't want to go out of lockdown just for like a month later, oh, it's back, everyone back into lockdown, and we do this all again. Because I think that's when things might go wrong. But at the end of the day, I think people have to worry about themselves. In lockdown, maybe when they're out in public, yes, worry about others. But I think for the most part, in order for mental health especially, you have to worry about yourself and put yourself first, and not feel bad about self-care, because there's a bit of prejudice about self-care. But I think people just need to accept that this is the way it is, and that is a positive step, and just keep it as best they can. And that's what I will do after lockdown. I'll try and stay zen. I'll try and keep learning this stuff. I'll keep doing my hobbies. I'll try and expand things that I love, and fingers crossed that'll all happen smoothly.
I think that we've all sort of grounded ourselves now, maybe like 3.5, 4 months in, we've all grounded ourselves with what's happening. And my worry is that coming out of lockdown, that might be detrimental to, the calm we've all found now. I think it might harm our relationships that we've worked on and built on, and we communicate so much more now through social media and everything. But the busyness of everyday life might affect that and might cause distance, which isn't a bad thing, but I think that it can change things and throw people off. I think another fear is just a lot of people, because we've all been lowered down to our households. So I think that me personally, not that I'm not a people person, but there's a couple of friends I have or whatever, and big crowds and noisy places and stuff can be overwhelming. So I think for some people that might make them retreat more into themselves, which I hope it doesn't. Just a fear of change and routine again. Not that that's a bad thing, but I'm going to be given a lot more work than I have now. Like going into university, that would have been really difficult anyway. But now, having gone from absolutely nothing to the workload that's going to be expected from me there, that's something that worries me a little bit. Lots of little things. I think it's all the little things that we were worried about going into lockdown and that we kind of realised it's not the be all and end all. That's what's going to come back when we go out of lockdown. And I'm hoping that we don't pin too much on it and let it kind of drag us to a bad place. Yeah.
Share some positive stories of what time has given you during lockdown.
I think lockdown has really been motivating for me. It was like the big word motivation. I was scared at the beginning because being alone, I'm the kind of person that just can't do that. So stay all day in the house, I've been really scared, but I realized it was just a big time for breathing, and it was amazing because it was a lot of motivation really. And I realized I've been losing a lot of time before, but just like doing nothing and just like staying home, and now with lockdown I realize I'm not going to lose any time anymore. And that's why it's crazy, because now all my projects and everything I wanted to do, I'm going to do them. And I'm doing so much these days, and I've been doing so much at home, and I'm just thinking, I'm not scared anymore. I'm just going to do and go to do everything I always wanted to be. So it's really like, it's been crazy because I wasn't expecting lockdown to be like this, and it has been amazing. Yeah.
Some of my colleagues from work convinced me that it would be a really good idea to start running. So we started this little running club, and it, at first seemed okay. And we were doing the couch to 5K. Well, I was doing that, and they, misled me and made it seem like they weren't as advanced as I was, but they were a lot more advanced. So I'm trying to run and keep up, and I'm out of breath, and it's horrific, and I feel like everyone's watching me. And it was the hottest day of lockdown. I don't know if you all remember that day where it was like 50 degrees. It's an exaggeration. It wasn't 50, but yeah. So it was pretty hot. I convinced them that we should walk back because we'd been running for quite a long time. And when I got back to my house later on that day, I realised that I'd burnt the back of my neck, and I still have the sunburn on the back of my neck. So I have this very strange oval shaped, just really dark patch, and I can't really wear anything that doesn't cover it because it just looks really ridiculous. So that was pretty good. And I've not been out for a run since, so yeah.
My positivity with lockdown is that I think I've realized that sometimes I don't give myself enough credit, and I don't think I can achieve things that I can. So I over lockdown had done like a charity fundraiser. Well, not really charity, but I raised like £400 for some Black Lives Matter charities from my bedroom. And that's like something that I had like in the back of my head, like I want to do this or I want to do that. I have a lot of things that I start but don't finish, purely because I get halfway and tell myself I'm not going to be able to do that. That's not feasible. That's like beyond my capabilities. And not having anything to do, not having anywhere to go has given me, I guess, the push that I needed to be like, this is something I can do. If I spend like a couple days researching, I can make something out of nothing. I can achieve a lot more where I am now. I always think I need to get to a certain point to be able to do this, but I am already there, I guess, in some senses. So I think that lockdown has given me maybe a bit more confidence in myself. I think I worry a little bit less now as well, because sometimes I kind of get in my head about what other people think of me, and like what I like, not disappointing people. But since there haven't been that many people allowed to, like, that we're allowed to interact with, I can kind of filter what comes my way through social media and stuff, and I can decide what I let affect me and what I don't. So I think that that's something that I wouldn't have had time to learn with how busy I was. So it was a positive from lockdown.
Last Sunday we got up at 4 a.m. and walked to the hill at the top of our village to watch the sunrise together, all socially distanced and everything, and that was amazing, and that's like a memory I'll carry for ever and ever, and the happiest I've been for a long time. And I think that was something so special that you wouldn't have thought that you'd be able to do. And it's always something that everyone says, like, oh, it'd be nice to watch the sunrise, but like, who has time to get up at 4 a.m? But it was amazing, and I think it's just little things that you want to do, books you wanted to read but never had the time to do.